All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today for the Direct Selling Executives Forum, open forum on the evolution of training. My name is Ben Dixon, and I'm blessed to host today's panel and just feel floored and honored at the panel we have for you here today. Last year we talked about sheroes and attracting the she heroes to your referral marketing company. Actually, Johnna was on that panel with us, a number of great leaders. And it's actually our first time having a speaker back. So Johnny, it's your second time on DSEF. You were the first to get a round two on DSEF. You had a different company today, and I thought it was right. So for this topic, I wanted to have you back. But today's it's my honor to intro everyone today, and it's a very exciting topic for those of you that are not familiar with Direct Selling Executive Forum, or this is your first time attending. This is an opportunity as a place there's no pitch, there's no offer, there's no services here. It's all education, and it's questions that we each wrestle with that many of you type in to the LinkedIn group that we gather up, and we think about which executives could really speak to that topic. And we get together on a panel, and it's just a place to be raw and to share what we're seeing in that part of the space. We each learn, we each take notes, and we talk about it for this time. And so grateful to have you here if you're watching on the stream or on the replay. Good to have you here as well. Now, as I go around and make the intros today, I'm not going to get into each personal story, but I'm going to list the different companies that Angela, Tracy, and Johnna have actually worked at in the past that were very specific times that were important, something that's so special about the panel and why I selected the people that we selected to be here today is each of these executive heroes served at really special times in their roles, whether they were on the sales side or on the marketing side or on the training side at that time for the direct sales companies they were in. And if you look at any of their LinkedIn's, you're going to sit there and say, oh, they were the one there during that time. And so even though it's amazing to hear that, Johnna's at Color Street today and Tracy's at Beauty Counter today and Angela's doing some cool things at Rodan and Fields today, I want to just give you a little walk of history before we jump in, because Angela's story didn't start at Rodan and Fields. She was at Pampered Chef and then was at Creative Memories for a very long time for a very important season, and then was at Monat Global for a critical season in their life. And so when you look at the time and what happened to those companies during their time, you'll say, oh, now I see how Angela could speak to this. And same here with Tracy. She was at Pampered Chef with Angela at one point in the time, and then was at Leah Sophia right here in Chicago. I'm in Chicago. So Tracy's the closest one geographically to me today. She's up in northern Chicagoland, right? But Leah Sophia, when they had their big run, here's right. And then Vic Cosmetics, when they had their good part of their run, right? It's right here. So there's a lot that can be said in that. And today is at Beauty Counter. Johnna, if you remember back to when Scentsy was cranking, Johnna was at Scentsy during that season. She was also at Initial Zinc. Initial Zinc just announced they're closing now years later, but back when they were doing really cool things, Johnna was there. Okay. She was at Verabella when we met, right? I was a software provider to Johnna Verabella when we connected. So I share a few of those things with you today, so you don't just think about the companies they're leading at today, but where they've come from. So with that, let's go ahead and jump in to our first question. And as attendees, those of you who were the ones who made the time on a Friday to come in live, you can use that questions box. I will moderate as well as we go through the questions. And how we normally do this is we take a question and we go through the three panelists. And so I'm going to actually invite Angela to kick us off today with question number 1, and then we'll be coming to Tracy next, and then Johnna. So with question number 1, as we talk about the evolution of training, we want to unpack that when it comes to training today, what are you just finding that's just no longer relevant? Is some artifact we're all holding on to that we just need to leave behind? So what comes to mind for you, Angela, when you think about that?
So when you first presented this question to me, I'm like, holy cow, I'm going to have to think about that one, because, we want everything in the kitchen sink in there, because we know the field needs all of it. And so I actually wrestled with this one a little bit. And I think for me, like the best answer I could come up with, and I'm not certain this needs to be tossed out altogether, but it's a curious question. What we're seeing most companies doing now is moving away from these 50-page notebooks of printed training that show up in the starter kits, and people are opting more for like QR codes now, where they can go to this evergreen training that you continue to refresh. And it's economical for companies, obviously, but also it's agile, so it ebbs and flows with what the trend of the field is. And so for me, I would say printed materials might start to become obsolete here if they're not already in that process.
You have a really good point about the ability to make changes. I mean, today, one of the themes I think we'll hear in this training today is how fast teams iterate today. I mean, it seems like we're learning faster than we ever were, even as executives in the space. And the hardest thing with the printed materials is you can't change it once it's in their hands, right?
Nope.
So I mean, how wonderful it is to be able to say, up, version 1.2 is here, and next week version 1.3 is here. And that's a really solid point for us to remember. Is like asking the question, do we need to hold on to that? I'm happy you brought it up. And we've even seen the companies who provide the printed materials, starter kits, go out of business. So that's on trend. Some of the bigger printers that were doing that in the space have kind of don't even do that anymore. So that's a really good point. How about we'll go next? I said we'll go to Tracy next, right?
I mean, yep. And I think yes. I mean, I find it very hard to believe that anything that either of these two ladies say that I'm going to say, nope, I disagree. Like I would say we're probably largely aligned. But I think that the word that popped up for me, interestingly, when I was listening to Angela talk, was evolution, which is the topic of this whole call, right? Yeah. And it is, it's interesting. And by the way, I find myself, the topic that came to my head, or the phrase, was throwing out the baby with the bathwater. And I thought to myself, by the way, I'm majorly challenging myself on all of these catchphrases now. Like, what's the genesis? Where did it come from? Can we still say that? Right. So I think you can still say you don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. But I think that you're right. We don't need those 50-page binders. But I think one of the things we've been hearing at Beauty Counter is we used to have all of that. Now there isn't a guide, and the field is saying, hey, but can we have a little something? Like, just because we don't need a 50-page guide, it would be good to have a guide. So I was thinking, we go from version 1 to version 2, and then we're like, maybe we needed to be version 1.5. So evolution, learning, but I do agree with that. And then I would say the other piece is the one size fits all. I remember I've been in this industry a long time, and it was like, no, everybody has to start this way, and you have to do this. And I think that's the one piece we have to leave behind is, and I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth when we get to the next question. I'll contradict myself here, but no one size fits all.
It's a really great statement, though, because it makes us think, because it's true that we've always thought that people have the same goals. Like, of course, everyone wants this if they are joining our company, and it's not true. Everyone doesn't want this one thing that you defined for them. And how limiting is that for your company if this is all that's available, this one goal, this one model, because it's going to resonate with some and not with others. So we could unpack for an hour the no one size fits all, but hold on to that gem, gang, because that's going to make you think as we go through these questions. That's really solid. Johnna, what would you say is an artifact we can leave behind?
Definitely going to piggyback on what they were saying. And, one of the things, especially at Color Street, I've worked in lots of different companies, started in Mary Kay when we had the big binder and it was everything, but I do love this because, just to Angela's point, we're talking about, the QR codes and really kind of providing tools and resources that fit to everybody's different needs. And just like you said, it's not a one size fits all kind of thing. The one thing that came to me that I feel like Angela and Tracy didn't touch on yet, and you guys might think I'm totally crazy, but I think that one thing that we have to kind of leave behind, or at least put on the back burner, is the concept of in-person training. I think that everything has gone just so virtual that you've got to be creative. And I know that's in kind of our upcoming questions of how do we make that same, excitement and engagement and connection virtually, because I think that that's where everybody's at. And it's really hard to compete with the attention span of our independent consultants, and how do we do that? And let's make it convenient, short, simple, easy, and relevant all in one. So as Angela said, this is a really interesting question to think about and ponder and attempt to unpack, but that's kind of the in-person is like, it's kind of old school, so how can we get creative and up to date?
A question for you, Johnna, back on that. When you say that, do you mean throwing out in-person training 100% or in-person training alone as a strategy? Like, what are your thoughts there?
My thoughts are in-person alone as a training strategy.
Gotcha.
I'll give you an example. A lot of the annual conferences are coming up, and we're finding a trend of the virtual options now are far outweighing the participation of the in-person, which the in-person we all know is great. You get to hug, you get to wear your, all of your, ribbons and all that kind of stuff, but be really creative in how to tap into the people that aren't wanting to be in person. Of course, we learned through COVID on how to pivot, how to make sure that we could still be relevant in a world where people didn't want to get together. So I am definitely an advocate in person. It's just coming more and more obsolete, I feel.
Yeah. And we'll get to it too as we discuss more today, and especially in question 4. I'm seeing in person look different than it ever has today too. Where in person in the past may have been super Saturdays in every market, all across the world the whole time, where some clients say in person is just celebrations. It's just contests and celebrations and celebrations and celebrations. I'm seeing that a lot, even amongst leaders today. If you browse Facebook, you'll see leaders today doing, hey, let's do this contest. And then I rented this Airbnb for the weekend, and the 3 couples get to come here and mastermind at the Airbnb for the weekend and enjoy a celebration. So we're seeing it evolve in a great way. Just as a node to a previous episode of the Direct Selling Executive Forum, we had Travis Garza, who's running Plexus these days, unpack how he saw in person changing just 2 episodes ago on our YouTube channel, and shared that when people achieve a certain rank, it's not a very high rank in Plexus, that they took their whole in-person budget and said, we're just going to fly them to the corporate office. And they have this little one-day workshop they host that's twice a month, and they fly each of these all the reps out that hit that little rank to just say, okay, here's one human touch, like this is who we are, and then let them back out, and then the rest of it is digital, to Johnna's point. They had what in-person one's going to matter. So it's almost like you only got, it's almost like you don't want to waste your budget on something that's not going to be impactful. And people are definitely shifting where in-person matters. That's a powerful thought. Yeah. So with that, let's go to Tracy. Kick us off with number 2. What are the elements you believe are define and create just a successful onboarding process today as we unpack this evolution of training?
Mm-hmm. And I did say this is where I was going to talk out of the other side of the track, because I was saying there's no one size fits all, but I really feel strongly that it has to be simple, easy, and fun. And so literally broken down to if you're only going to do these, these are the 3 things you have to do if you're only going to do 3 things. So if you do nothing else, and it can be at your own pace and in line with your own goals, and the rate at which you repeat these 3 things will be the acceleration or the towards the achievement of your goals. But really putting in just super simple, these 3 things. So it makes it one size fits all, but you get to design what it looks like.
What's an example? Walk us through 3 things of what you see today.
So it's different everywhere based on the culture or the goals, but it might be, share, get out there, tell the world that you are now a new consultant. It might be hold your launch, whether that be virtually and or in person, and it might be go through the training series behind. It might be connect with 30 people. It might be book virtual events and recruit your first person. So whatever it is, the first 3 things you want them to do. And then I particularly love the concept behind that, then the rate at which you do those things. So it basically says, these are the 3 things. You might take a month to do it. You might do it all today, but and then repeat, and we can start layering on. So.
That's a really good point for everyone to make, is that even if you have a path to run on, the variable of different people's goals could be the amount of time it's going to take them to do those things that determines their outcome.
Exactly.
And hey, some people,
Yeah.
Marcus, because some of you have, structure bonuses in place in your companies where in 15 days, if you do this work, you get this extra bonus, or in 30 days, you do this work, you get that extra bonus. And
Mhm.
and those are, meant to, of course, to incentivize a group of people to go for it right away. But people will then say, well, even if you don't go for those bonuses, if you do it within 3 months, here's what will happen in your life as
Mhm.
well. That's
Mhm.
good.
Mhm.
Johnna, what are you seeing? We'll come to Angela last on this one. What do you feel is the real elements that are both define and create a successful onboarding process today?
I would definitely focus on a drip campaign. I'm really surprised at how many companies don't have a drip campaign in place. It's shocking to me. And I think that that is really important because sometimes companies feel like, well, that's the leader's job to kind of reach out to them and all that kind of stuff. And they're just not. And so these new consultants are getting left behind and feeling really neglected and like they don't matter. And of course, as you know, when they don't matter, they don't work, right? And Ben, to your point, I love that, a company would bring somebody in because how special is that, and those memories, I just got goosebumps because those memories are going to create amazing things. So I think the drip campaign is ultimately important. And then I don't think there should be any other conversation in a 30, 60, 90-day period other than that company's smart start, great start, jump start, perfect start, whatever the start is, get them started. And that should be all it is. And I know that some leaders like to just dump all this information and it's too overwhelming. So I think that specific focus is important. And then also, Ben, what I'm finding is that consultants and enrollers, recruiters there's not even conversations with people that are enrolling on their team. So I might ask, when's the last time you talked to your team? And it's months or months and months and months, So I think the personal touch, even if it's when I say pick up the phone, people are cringing. They're just like, no, I don't want to pick up the phone. I'm like, well, chances are it's going to go to voicemail, but at least they'll hear your voice and they'll know that you took time to reach out and connect with them. I think that's such an important part of creating that successful onboarding experience.
And John, you had two like amazing gems in there. One of the things I love about that personal touch that we think about today in this busy world we live in. We were celebrating. My mother passed away from cancer last year suddenly, and we were having her celebration of life 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about what is love today, and for people who showered real love into your life. And we were talking about business owners and our own employees. My siblings and I all own businesses. And we talked about how creating time is the most valuable resource anybody has. And what's so special about hearing a phone call and everything Johnna just shared, what kind of hit me there, and I want us all to hear it, is that time is the most expensive resource we all have. And why is that phone call valuable, even if it's a voicemail? Because it showed that you cared enough and you valued that person enough to actually leave them a voicemail, and don't discount that. In your drip campaign talk, I've actually seen clients put in triggers that when people hit certain ranks, that different executives at the company call. And I know personally, when I was a top earner in 2009, a long time ago in the space, right, that the founder of that company called me once, and I had won some super ring for a gazillion dollars in sales. I can't remember which diamond they added to my ring at the time. I was a very young person. It was a crazy wild ride. But I remember when the founder called me, and I was like, he called me. I was blown away that this guy would call me little old me. And I've seen that make a massive difference. The second thing you said that I think I don't want to rush past, because it's something that is probably a lot of disagreement in people who are watching this and or even attending live. You said somebody owned enrollment. You said, whose job is it to own onboarding? You said most people think it's the field, but you think it's the company. And I mean, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Is like that's actually one of the artifacts to throw out from question number one, is to stop thinking that the field owns this experience of onboarding, and that you need to take responsibility as the company to say, like, yes, the field owns relationships and they're bringing their trusted relationships to us, but we're going to not expect them to be perfect onboarders. We want to have a certain experience that everybody gets to have when they come into our company for the first time. And we're going to make sure at a base level that everybody at least gets this experience. Even if their sponsor is a bozo, our favorite bozo is my favorite Steve Jobs word there, right? So he said that in his famous speech. He said, just don't listen to bozos in life, right? So if we just go back to thinking of whose job it is, one of the things we can do, to Johnna's point, gang, and I hope we all hear it, is we can choose to own it. We can choose to own onboarding and design onboarding from corporate's perspective so that everybody gets a genuine experience regardless of who their sponsor is. So hope we all heard that. That's really, really good. That's what I was hearing. So let's head over to Angela. Angela, elements define and create a successful onboarding process today.
I feel like we all share a brain here.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're all like kind of thinking on the same wavelength. So I went a little different direction here. I think in terms of elements, I think whatever content you're putting out, it has to be snackable. It has to be these bite-sized short segments, and you alluded to it just a few moments ago. You know, we are a time-starved society, and so if something looks too complicated or too long, they're simply not going to take it in. And so also another important thing, and you mentioned it already with the onboarding, it's super important to be able to equip sponsors with how to onboard properly and effectively, whether companies creating it or, well, hopefully company partners with field to create it. But sponsors need to play, an active role in that whole process. The company can lay down the foundation, which is great, but then it's up to that sponsor to pick it up and help their new team members to activate it, not just with the head knowledge, but also that experiential knowledge too. So in a sense, we need to make sure that we are onboarding our sponsors so that they can be master onboarders.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some good examples. I've seen it. I mean, I've seen triggers of like, go tell your sponsor your goals, right? And it creates the space for like, you need to go set a 15-minute conversation with your sponsor. And like you create almost the expectation as corporate that is going to happen. That
oh yeah, it's on the checklist, right?
It's on the checklist. Exactly. So you set up that, hey, this type of relationship is going to happen. Yeah. Oh, that's really healthy. Yeah. Any other insights as we've been listed, Tracy or John, anything to add? I don't want to move on. I see all the notes flying too. I'm taking notes too. Any others you want to share? Back to you, Tracy, before we move on. Yeah.
No, good.
Okay, cool. Angela, let's stay with Angela for this next one, because when you get to go last on a question, it's like, man, they said the thing I wanted to say. So we're going to let Angela go first, right? And it's okay, and that's totally fine. I even share with my own staff all the time. It's like, just if you have something to add, say it. It's okay. You don't have to say ditto. So it's all right. So how do you feel technology? Just because there's been so many changes, and COVID and everything, how we interact with each other. How do you see technology? And how does it play the role in the way you train today?
So I love this question too. I came from a company that grew by leaps and bounds with a field who primarily worked right from their phone. This was their desk, right? And so training's got to be portable. That's the one thing I can't emphasize enough. And to piggyback on that, it also has to be smart in terms of capturing prospects and really queuing up that activity. So this is what helps set the frequency of business. We talk about, consistency is so important. Like, we need to train our consultants how to be consistent. Well, they can be consistent doing one thing one time a month, and how successful are they going to be? So rather than thinking in terms of consistency, we need our technology to queue up frequency. So for example, if your frequency model is, reaching out to 5 or having 5 new two-way conversations and 3 follow-ups every single day, no matter what, well, the technology needs to be able to serve that up with action items and those reminders, and even better, with whom. And if I can just take it one step further, I would love to see technology, and I have actually seen some do this relatively well, where it even gives you the words to say, like conversation starters. They don't have to go digging around for something. All of their action items are right there.
Yeah,
Love it.
I love that. I couldn't agree more. There's one thing to share there I think is really important with the frequency is sometimes technology, when we have this kind of discussion, there's a fantasy in the field when we roll out certain technologies where they think like, oh, the tech's going to build the business for me so I don't have to do anything. And one of the things I love about what Angela just shared is she's like, no, there's a frequency to this business. Like she mentioned daily habits, and I'm a huge fan of daily habits in the space. No one expects to make money from Uber if they download the app and then never get in the car and drive. And they shouldn't expect to make money in your business unless they get in the car and drive. Like they should have to come in and do these daily things. And so the more you can do that type of work, the better it can be. And I've personally been investing heavily into what Angela just shared in the space and have been seeing its fruit. So I'm gonna, right as I said, don't say ditto. I'm gonna say ditto to what Angela just shared, just because it works in other areas of life. Like if we look at things that work in tech around us, like many of you watching may be familiar with apps like Noom or MyFitnessPal, who have had just massive success in the space of weight loss in the space. I could share I'm a compassionate husband. I've gained just as much weight as my wife every time we've had a child. So I'm a good husband in there. I do my part. And 3 kids later, I used MyFitnessPal on the first 2 and Noom on the 3rd kid to lose the weight back. And I'm 35 pounds lighter than I was a year ago from Noom. And so that was daily habits, just what she's talking about. And so you can learn from other parts of life and apply that to your direct sales. So you don't have to only look inside of direct sales for technology. You can look outside of it and say, okay, how does that help human behavior? So really, really good, Angela. Let's go to you next, Johnna. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, Angela mentioned, what to say. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that I've experienced over my decades in the industry. And that is people just lob onto what do I say and how do I say it? And so Ben, you and I have worked on a project,
Yep.
Using your app just about specifics. Okay, when this happens, I mean, I've written out everything that needs to be said, but they have to click send or they have to click, but we're making it so easy. Technology is unbelievable. The stuff that you've kind of opened my eyes to, Ben, it is unbelievable. The one thing that I put down for the question too is how does technology play a role in the way that you train today? And I think one of the things that is getting creative with, let's say, even, Zoom, making sure that you have a tech producer, making sure that you've got a co-instructor that's behind the scenes that can fill in if if you're coughing or something happens to your, laptop or something like that, or somebody that's a facilitator in the chat. So you're engaging. And because we talked about the time, because if you start having tech issues or I can't share this or whatever, you turn people off, they're out. And so I think that, getting creative in how you do that. One of the things that I'm teaching in the last couple of years is with, even like doing virtual meetings, with the top leaders doing virtual meetings, getting your audience involved in, maybe it's, I did it. You have a sign that says like, I did it or something like that. So when you're in your team meeting, it's like, hey, who sold a nail strip this week? Who sold us, a moisturizer? And people can engage and, I did, because I mean, how else are you supposed to do it, right? To make people have fun and be excited to want to come back again, because if they're going to come back and they're engaged and they're feeling, loved, it's going to happen. So I think, really leveraging all the tools, the polls. I mean, right now with I'll do it right now. Hold on. I think it's here. No, I don't see it. Like right now, like in Zoom, you can now add reactions. Oh, whoops. So, I mean, just little things like that, learning all the different things that you can do, I think is really important.
Mixing the physical and digital world, what Johnna just said, is so critical, gang. I've seen clients do product launches digitally to where they send a box and the box says, don't open me, and they get on the Zoom or the live stream together and everybody's sitting there with their box and they're like, at the same time, they're like, oh, and then they, oh my gosh. I've seen this happen at digital conventions for award ceremonies where people don't know what award they got, and it's in the box, and then they say, and next we're gonna have her open it, and they're opening it in front of everybody. Oh my gosh, and they do, and gang, you can have so much fun with it. And gang, it's kind of a no excuse thing because anyone can do it. The technology might be fancy like an app, like John was saying, it might be a PDF, gang. Some of you haven't even done the work of creating a frequently
Mhm.
asked questions PDF to coach your people. And I just hope when you hear this stuff today, you say, oh my Lord, I'm going to go do that this afternoon
Yeah.
because you should. I mean, but that's what I'm hearing. Like we all have excuses in mind. Well, if only that was in my budget for this quarter, or if only I could do that in 6 months. Gang, you can make a PDF this afternoon, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I want you to hear when you're hearing this stuff is hear the problems it's solving. Yes, having a predictive app is going to change people's lives over a PDF 100-fold, but you better go create the PDF because without the PDF, they're just messaging their sponsor on Facebook saying, Julia did this. What do I do next? You know, come on, we can be better than that. So yeah, so when I use the word technology, don't always think it's software. Okay, technology can be a stinking PDF. All right. So I just want us to, it can be low, it can be
That's
high.
good.
I just throw the excuses out and let's do something. So that's what I'm hoping from today. So Tracy, what would you like to
Yeah.
add? I know you've been on all
I was,
sides of this one before. So what would you like to share?
yeah. So two things. One, Angela, you were talking about snackable, portable, and I think that is like the stair step to the one piece that I would say is customizable, because again, my mantra has always been, Angela and I worked together 100 years ago, and she's probably like, yep, I know that's the running theme, and it is find out what they want and help them get that. So how do you scale that? You know, as a leader, I can do that with everybody on my team, but how do we scale it as a company? And I would love to see, I have seen companies do very well where the person can plug in, you know, here's what I want out of the business. And then we go, oh, well, we'll just serve it right up to you exactly what your steps should be. And then again, that frequency.
And there's one word you just had there that I think is really important. When we revisited snackable, the one part we didn't say was accountable. And I've seen this trap for a lot, and we should bring it up in this step because like I had a client who's super passionate about their training process. They were very proud that every time they put a video on Facebook, they get 10,000, 12,000 views. And they thought, man, we have these groups on Facebook training our reps. We get 10,000, 12,000 views. We're doing it, folks. And I said, man, you only got 30,000 people in the company. A third of them are, wow, that's amazing. And you say, well, guys, how many people are actually finishing those videos? Is Facebook even the right place to do it? Because that data is kind of meaningless. You know, they're browsing pictures of their nieces and nephews and they see you for 4 seconds and stop and then they scroll back on. I don't think they finished your 6-minute video, Angela. I don't think they finished it, Johnna. And so the one part of the snackable that I'd agree with in a big way is to have where technology can play a big role is the accountability around rewarding people for finishing content instead of just being people who start content. One of those simple ways that can be low tech, high tech, but putting your structures in place to where you're not just celebrating formats where people are starting stuff, but where you're really putting the energy on them finishing stuff. And the more you can help show the sponsors that people are actually doing it, the better. Yeah. So you know who
you said
for it.
You said something really important, that the technology, ideal technology would be able to show metrics, not just who's taken in and consuming the courses, who's completing them, and then, you know, the ability to track what do they do after that. So for instance, you have an LMS of some sort that has an onboarding course. These people, you know, who are brand spanking new, go through the course. What do they do in their first 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? Knowledge, that you're going to gain knowledge from that. Knowledge is powerful, especially in terms of the efficacy of the training that you're putting out. And if it's not working, you got to change something, right? But you don't know if it's working or not unless you can measure it initially.
And measure both things is what I would share. Some of us fall into the traps on needing like 90 days to make a decision or 120 days to make a decision because we're only measuring sales.
Yeah.
And it's a warning for us all. It's like your competitors are going to beat you if you're still measuring sales. We all think like, no, Ben, sales is all that matters. But sales is way down here. It's at the end of the whole thing. It's the result. There's did they send the text message? Did they do the daily, what Angela said earlier, the daily behaviors? Did they do the daily behaviors and how long did they do them? Did they show up? Like you can measure that stuff way up here in your process. Sales is way down here. And some of
Yeah.
us miss that. We miss how fast we could be making decisions if we measured things that were closer together than just going all the way to who finished this video and then did they hit X rank, which is way down here. You know, I'm not even on the Zoom screen anymore, right? It's way down here in the process.
Mhm.
That
I was going to share
really good
too,
trigger. Yeah,
you know,
go
you
ahead.
talked about being raw. And I think one of the elements to that piece that I've been a part of in multiple companies is how to reward for those achievements, you know, that we clicked on this, we watched the whole thing. Some people, you know, give points, some people give product, all that kind of stuff. I've seen people give way too much product, so then you have to reel it back in. I'm an advocate of, even if you just put them in your newsletter, you know, congratulating the people, they love that, you know, but I think it's a fine, you got to figure it out. It's, you know, what do they say? You know, part science, part art, you know, trying to figure out what the best solution is for those prizes and rewards and things that you do to celebrate those people that do those things.
And I've seen all of those, John. I've seen points be used. I've seen everyone do points, but then use points in very unique ways. Like sometimes people do use points to get product. Sometimes you can just get certain swag that you can't get without points, or certain seating at convention that you can't get without points. And or you can come to the certain mastermind call that you can't come to if you don't have the points. I've actually seen all of those. Did anyone have any of those to share? I would love to hear. Just Angela or Tracy, do you have any of those you've seen of how people use the points? Just while we're being raw about that outside of what I mentioned, because I've seen a couple different ones I thought were pretty cool.
I'm thinking about certainly being a customer or a client of this. A year ago, we bought a Sleep Number bed, and there, you know, you get points for reading the articles and points for taking the quiz and points for and I was like up at night in my Sleep Number bed trying to rack up more points, and before I know it, I had $90. I got a free pillow. I was like, this is, you know, and my husband's like, you are ridiculous. I'm like, oh no, I'm almost got 90 points. Like, so I mean, hey, it works. It gets the best of us, right?
And those pillows rock, by the way. If anyone,
oh my God,
it's worth every moment of the energy Tracy put in. They are like,
I love it. Yeah.
My wife got me one for our 10-year wedding anniversary, so I
love
enjoyed it. Changed my life too. They're a great pillow.
I've seen gift cards, so like company gift cards in like $10 increments. So you could give those, you can use them as like incentives or things like that with your customers or your team, and they're only good, you know, you can only use one gift card per order. I've seen that. I've seen, like you mentioned, the swag or special swag, exclusive swag, calls or lunch with an executive or an owner. Amazon gift cards, Starbucks gift cards. So I think it's what your field likes. And I am a firm believer of changing it up all the time. So it's always new and it's, you know, fun. So, and I just noticed that your bookshelf is color coded, Ben. I love it.
It's a rainbow. Yes. And it's done that way. It's Roy G. Biv. Yeah.
I love it.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. So the next question, let's dive into here for time. I'm going to have, actually have Tracy kick us off on this one, is when you think of the distributor journey and imagine your members that have been with your organization for over 2 years, like we just talked about onboarding, right? And sometimes we forget this other half. So what are the elements you believe are required to create and engage that training experience? So the folks who've been here a while, right? It kind of can get stale if everything's about the great start and the fast start and 90 days and it's here and 150 days and it's here and you're only talking about those. What elements have you seen really work for the people who've already been here 2 years?
Yeah, I think that it's fundamental because we're currently in this phase right now. What got us here won't get us there. So I've seen that in so many companies. You know, you get to a different, you know, grown up phase of the company. And even though the success has been amazing and incredible, I always find it interesting how difficult it can be to make that duplicatable, because what I did to grow my business back here is it's not working. So it's almost like a new onboarding. So I think there is needs to be an attention on your current field doing the onboarding as well. So rewarding them for going through it. Johnna, you asked, when's the last time you've done X? It's like, have you gone through the onboarding? Because it's updated 6 times since when you started, but people think they don't need onboarding because they onboarded 6 years ago. So I think that that's a biggie. And then also taking things, I think, again, this is not necessarily as scalable, but very, again, customizable, is I think back to what are those things you put on the shelf? So Johnna, you're mentioning, go back to that yellow book in the middle there, Ben. And we go to these conferences and we take notes, or we get the book and we highlight and we stick it up on the shelf then. So what were the things that were working? Because again, some of them are fundamental and they worked 50 years ago, they work today. And some of them are, that did work 50 years ago, it doesn't work today. So finding the balance of both of those. I would say. And then I also think investing in leadership development and really, I loved what you said, Angela, about, making them masters of onboarding. So same, let's feed those leaders so that then they feel like leaders, and then they want to go and really deploy those tools to their teams, making them stronger leaders. So.
Love it.
One thing that is so powerful when you think about a relaunch, the way you just shared it, Tracy, too, it ties in right with what Angela shared earlier about daily habits, is sometimes like the reminder is like, are you actually doing what we teach in the daily habits? Many times you're not in a season. And it can feel really daunting when something's forever, but people can always do something for a period of time. And so what I've seen too is that challenge of like, hey, just do 30 days at this level that we just talked about again. Just do 30 days. And can you commit to 30 days? Let's just see what happens in 30 days. When you're done, we can be done. But just 30 days. Let's just see. You can always go back to what you were doing. And then it can be life-changing. And there's a kind of a fun way you can call that, whether it's relaunch, or I've seen all kinds of fun phrases for that. But that's very cool. How about over to you, Angela? So not the onboarding, but someone's been with us 2 years.
Yeah, sure. So I think part of that, I see like a good training platform would include not only, training at each level within whatever compensation, what are the skills they need. And so for sure that's there. Always evaluating and measuring and seeing if anything needs to be reframed, based on innovations within your company or field trends, or like Tracy said, and something that's not working anymore. That needs to be agile as well to shift and pivot and whatever. But one of the things within the journey itself, however that looks, is to incorporate mindset training, particularly for the people who have been around for quite some time. So 2 things, actually. Another thing just popped in my mind. So mindset training. So rather than throwing, another skill building course for people who have been around for a little bit, we can come behind, and particularly when they might be experiencing roadblocks. We can come behind that and, support it, encourage them with some mindset drills. And it might be something, purely anecdotal delivered by another distributor who faced something similar and how they overcame it. But I think we need to nurture their headspace as well as their skill building.
And that's an everyday decision. What Angela just shared, we have a culture in our company where we call it daily Kaizen, and it's part of people's scorecard. Literally, like you have additional goals in your scorecard. Like everyone in our company listens to audiobooks for 15 minutes or more every day, and it's part of our scorecard, because we understand that people face garbage all day long in many ways, and they need something positive refreshing their mind. And so we have a list of 75 in a row, and we say, start at number 1. When you finish that, go to 2, 3, 4, 5, and we ask that you write notes. And so it takes about 20 minutes a day, and we literally have all 55 plus of our staff who did it every day, and it's been life-changing. And I bring it up to say that some of my clients and friends that I know that even aren't my clients today in the space, at this level, to Angela's answer, gang, have done a book of the month club where the founder or the director of sales has picked a book and has said, you know what, gang, for July, we're going to read, right, the High Five Habit from Mel, right? And we're going to, she's got a crazy wild story, right? And here we go. We're going to read Mel's High Five Habit. And boom, let's all read that and share our thoughts of how we can apply a high five habit in our life. And it's those little pieces, gang, on some of these later journeys where it's gonna speak to them in a special way. It might be Grant Cardone's, be obsessed or be average, or it might be, something that's softer in the space. So you just got to decide what really fits your culture, because there's a ton of great life-changing books out there you can bring in, and audiobooks are game-changing. That's good. Johnna, on your side, what are you seeing as an element?
This is a fascinating question because it's about 2 years, right? So you said it about 2 years.
Yeah.
Now I want to use a specific example because I think it can apply to many of the direct sales companies, but specifically for Color Street. Because if you remember 2 years ago, every nail salon on the planet was closed, right? For months and months and months. And so that's when Color Street people are like, oh my gosh, this is an amazing alternative. I can do a pedicure and a manicure with this. It's, dry nail polish. It was amazing. So things were explosive. So what the challenge is now is 2 years later, when our market is kind of going back to normal, which is still in a growth pattern, the thought process we're really having to work with, because it's like, we're not tanking, right? It's just, we're normalizing. We had this incredible anomaly. And so to Angela's point, the mindset has been riveting to try to change, because where people came on board, people were just going to their websites and buying all this stuff like crazy. We had amazing rank advancements. People are making unbelievable money. And now they have to work at it.
Yeah.
And so now they're like,
why.
well, what's happening? Yeah. And it's like, well, if you haven't talked to anybody, or you've never even put samples on somebody, this is where it's coming. And so I think training is absolutely essential with that mindset, like Angela mentioned. And so going back and saying, trying to remind people, there's not problems. We're just normalizing, and I also put down, and Tracy mentioned this too. I put down continuity, making sure that your message is very, very similar and moving forward, but also you can have the same message, but saying it in different ways, right? Which I think is really important. And so I put that down as, there's different ways to arrive at the goals that you have. So
one thing that's a powerful reminder from what Johnna just shared is teaching the law of seasons. And so many people miss that. If you look at the people who have been the greatest on your teams and have done so much, they all have that long-term focus. They didn't let, something tragic take them out of the game that happened, whether it was good or bad, right? And there's a power in teaching this concept of the law of seasons, of how, most things are temporary and it's going to look different in a few months. And you got to know why you're here to get through it. And we talk a lot in direct sales and network marketing about knowing your why. And sometimes at the 2-year mark, the revisiting power I've seen is coming back and explaining why it's important to know your why. And the reason why is because you ask the question, is it worth it? So because people will face challenges, and challenges will take them out of the game if they forget why they're here in the first place. And so the question to always ask is, okay, what was your why? Why are you doing this business? Okay, is it still worth it? Like, do you just need to be reminded of that's why you're here, or do you need a different why?
It also might be, sorry to jump in here, but it also might be their why has evolved. And when's the last time they checked it, remembered what they first started with? 2 years later, why are they still here? And what do they want from their business today versus 2 years ago?
You came here to fund your daughter's college. She's already through college now.
Yes.
What's next? So many people, they miss that, right? Oh, you came here to not have to work that part-time job. Now you don't have to work the part-time job. So what's next? And some of those most powerful whys come when it's about somebody else, not even them anymore. If they've gotten through certain things in their life of their own goals, and now their why becomes about, others being able to achieve. And then that's a very special place when they don't need the big event anymore and they've already had the big event, and it's about helping others achieve big events. That's where you're going to get some of your longest term builders, because they won't be attracted by shiny things from others, because they see your company, as the platform that will transform other people's lives. And that becomes if you can get to that level, gang, with your company being that platform that they trust for other success like that, watch out for the growth, because that just gets phenomenal. And any closing thoughts as we wrap up today? Tracy, anything else you'd like to add? Yeah.
Just fun. Just wow. You were saying, everybody can make a PDF this afternoon. And I was like, great, thanks, Ben and lady. Now maybe working this afternoon. Now maybe working this weekend on, imparting some of these ideas that we had. But no, always a great forum. And thank you for hosting this. And of course, I'm honored to be sitting next to these two ladies who I knew before today, but love even more after today. So.
Well, thank you, gang. Any others? As remember, let's go to John. Anything else you'd like to add today? Yeah.
I would just say, Ben, something that you shared. I think that we all go through seasons of challenge and fear and what have we done? And, and oh my gosh, look what we've done. And we go through these seasons. And as we talked about, I mentioned Color Street with this huge explosion. It was a very cool opportunity, but there's also people, I'm studying Southwest right now. So like Southwest, or the airline industry in general, how it just totally tanked, but some of them had to shut their doors, but most of them didn't, because they know that there's, those cycles. And I think that it's important. So I just want to remind everybody who's on the call, watching live or watching the recording is just keep going, just keep plugging into resources and tools and phenomenal people like you've seen today. And, know that that's part of the journey, and just keep going, because what did you say? Steve Jobs said, no, somebody said, maybe it was Angela, you can be something or a bozo, be crazy and go for it, or be a bozo. I don't know.
Yeah, don't listen to bozos. That's a
They're
Steve Jobs.
good.
Yeah. That was one of his larger speeches in life. I love that. It's just a reminder. Everyone's got opinions. You will not make everybody happy in your life, or if you do, you're not really getting anything done. So be very conflicted. Yeah. Back. Angela, any thoughts as we wrap up today?
I am just thankful for being able to be with this panel in particular. It's funny that direct selling, it's a large industry, but it's a really small world. And I've had the pleasure of working with both of these ladies, and I was super excited to be here today. And I took a whole page of notes, almost a whole page of notes, but thank you guys for this.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for being involved. For everyone who came to the event today or is watching on replay, if you haven't yet subscribed on the LinkedIn group or the Facebook group, depending on where you like to live in the social media world, do so. The YouTube channel has all the replays. We will post this one up with the transcript in the LinkedIn group within the next few days here. So thank you so much just to our speakers for being here today. Super grateful for you, and just keep changing lives. What you do matters in so many incredible ways. We forget when we don't get to go to conventions and get all the hugs, what a difference it makes in people's lives. And I hope we can all pause and just reflect for a moment on the why we do what we do in our own space, and just remember that there's real families' lives changed forever from the work we do in this space. And there's a lot of good, with all the negative press on MLM or network marketing, that yes, there's bad actors in space, but then there's a whole bunch of good. And when you can look in the mirror and say, like, I do good every day, it's a powerful reminder. And so remember that when you're in your referral marketing space and everything that you do. Thank you for being here, gang. Have a blessed day, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.